up? Welcome back for another episode of the Currency Club. I am joined today by DJ Composition. What's up, Comp?
What's going on?
We here. We back at it again. In part one of an interview, we talked all about his experience and his career working as a DJ in Grand Rapids, Michigan. But right now, we are shifting gears to talk about his other business venture, his other entrepreneurial endeavor, and that is Freedom Elevated Defense Solutions. So tell us all about this business.
So Freedom Elevated Defense Solutions was birthed out of another passion project thing that I'm interested in, and that's been firearms and training and preparedness overall. COVID kind of shut things down, and it was something I had been actively involved with as far as like people knowing I did it hardcore, probably I want to say 2014, 2015. I always wanted to go get my proper certifications, but I never had the time to commit to it because I was always running my other businesses. So with COVID, it was a blessing in disguise because it gave me an opportunity to pivot and take the time and make that investment and commitment to go get the proper certifications and go through all the trainings that I needed to, because I already had a pretty in-depth background with firearms. And when COVID started and everybody was ready for the zombie apocalypse, you know, my phone and DMs and everything else was going crazy because they was like, what do I need to do kind of thing. So I was like, you know what, let me do this in an official capacity because this is something else I also enjoy. Now I have the ability to help empower people, especially people in our community who have never had the access to the information like we have now. It's always been a taboo subject in the Black community, and it's always been like, if I own a firearm and I'm Black, I gotta be a criminal. And I really want to eradicate that whole misconception and that stereotype. So it's been really important for me to empower our community and really show them how to do this the proper way, because this is a right for all of us. I've been having a great time at it, and I'm only getting better. So
All right, so I agree with everything you said, and it reminds me of the conversation that I had with Daryl Rostick, who owns Rostick Arms and Smart Shooters and has a YouTube channel and does a bunch of stuff in this firearm space as well. Daryl actually gave you a shout out during his interview, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I was like, I got to get DJ Comp here because I'm sure he has a unique perspective as well. What services does your business provide?
currently we are offering basic pistol courses and CPL courses and advanced classes, and we're looking to expand on that footprint with more medical stuff, with more preparedness kind of training. It's important to know how to handle a firearm and do it correctly, legally, and safely, but you're statistically more likely to have to use some medical training than to shoot your gun. I really want to cultivate that mentality too, because when people come to my class, I tell them this is not a shooting class. This is a shift in mentality to change your lifestyle for the better. I've been really hyper focused on like changing that wordage and that mentality, because it's a lifestyle for sure. And so many of us, we overestimate our abilities because of movies and TV, and that's complete bullshit. And people end up getting hurt. Every year it's over 3,000 accidental deaths and injuries from accidental shootings. You know what I mean? And that's because they don't follow the safety rules or they're playing around with it. You know, things happen, but we can prevent those things. I've had so many friends get caught with firearms and they didn't need to. They could have legally had it. Go spend the money, go make the investment. Now you hit with a felony, you can never have one now. And I wanted to change that narrative. Back in 2016, I had a friend of mine from Philadelphia. His name is Maj Toure. He's the owner and operator of the nonprofit group Black Guns Matter. It's a big national thing. And I reached out to him. I was really digging what he was saying. And I actually brought him to Grand Rapids in 2016 on the day of Trump's inauguration. Being a Black man in West Michigan talking about firearms and empowering the Black community was not well received. Folks was closing doors on us left and right, trying to shut us down. I mean, the news called me, and it was a free event. But because there was so much resistance and pushback, we had a small group of people come, because folks get scared of what they don't know. And we had attorneys there. We had other instructors there. And from that garnered a relationship where I went to different conferences in Atlanta. I've been across the country, like really networking with different people. And I started turning my activism into some energy. And that's kind of what spurred me to even be interested in being an instructor, because I wanted to help educate and empower people. So that was kind of like the start of my journey with that, because I've always been around firearms. I do this, like I really have firearms, and, you know, I go out and shoot. I mean, I do paintball even with that. That's even a form of training. So I really wanted to put things in perspective for folks, put it in a way where they can connect to it. I have a virtual simulator in my classroom where we have one-on-one replica pistols. We put you in scenario trainers where you have to respond to a threat. I have an attorney in my classroom. They critique, and the classmates, they all critique how you perform. Did you survive the encounter? Did you do this legally? Are you going to jail after this? So it's more than just putting bullets in a cardboard target or a paper target. It's about critical thinking in split seconds and having that situational awareness where you can avoid some things before it happens.
You are teaching life skills. You are teaching safety and preventative measures. So,
Definitely.
how did you come up with your name? I have a bunch of thoughts in my head about what you were saying
Well,
about
let me
educating
tell
and
you,
empowering the Black community. But yeah, let's talk about your name, Freedom Elevated Defense Solutions. Where'd
you
that come
tell me
from?
what you think. Let's see how good of a job I did.
Juneteenth just passed. I'm thinking Black people are not free in America. I'm
Nope.
thinking about how we are both from Grand Rapids area, which is very white and very
Yep.
conservative. I feel like we don't have our constitutional rights at times. People don't know what those constitutional rights are. They
You
are
know?
taken from us. And I am thinking about how you want to empower our community, all people. I should say all people, because I do like to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
inclusive of all
definitely.
people, but specifically our communities of color, to educate them, to empower them to do things the right way. So, like you said,
Yep.
they don't have to get caught carrying a concealed weapon when you could just, easily. I shouldn't say easily, but you could go get your license, or you could just learn the proper protocols so that you're not
Absolutely.
arrested for something that you have the right to do. Elevating awareness. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
elevating the need. I'm thinking
Look,
about the safety.
very close, very close. I mean, you pretty much are dead on. Obviously, the freedom element is important because, like you said, being in America, we often don't know what freedom really is, and it's not just from like a firearm perspective, but from all, like emotionally, mentally, spiritually, like that freedom to be able to move about how you want is priceless. So with that, it's like freedom. Like, let's go get this freedom, because once you have a taste of it, even if it's a slither, you never want to give it up. And elevation is just about rising everybody up, putting it in the forefront. If you look at the logo, it's basically a shield with arrows on it. The messaging behind that is we use shields to protect what we love, whether it's ourselves or our loved ones or even our investments. Okay. You can apply this to every angle of your life. Okay. Arrows have dual purposes. Okay. We use arrows to fend off anybody that's trying to harm us. Okay. We use it for defense, right? We attack with it. But then the other part of it is, even if we go way back, is arrows are being used to hunt. We use it to survive. We use it to attack our enemies, but we also use it to go after our goals and our dreams. We got to get after it because no one's going to give it to us. We got to go hunt it down. So shields and arrows is like the big thing for me. That's where like the imaging comes from, the shields and arrows, and you can apply that to any avenue of your life.
Now, I want to talk about your certification process. When we first kicked off this interview, you talked about, yeah, I had to go ahead and get certified. But what did that look like for you?
I am currently certified with the two largest organizing bodies in the country. It's the NRA and the USCCA. It was a lot to learn, very intensive, and I met a lot of people. I'm in here with ex-military, ex-law enforcement, current military, current law enforcement. So then when they come around the table and they say, well, what do you do? I say, hey, I'm a DJ. And I get some looks like this, but then I get some other ones like, you know what, that's cool. Going through that process, really learning the psychology on how to teach people, break down the information in the way that they can connect was really interesting. I had to do shooting exams. So like if you don't know how to shoot, you can't teach people how to shoot. I've had the opportunity to train with some really high level instructors to further my education. So I've trained with Rich Brown, Mike Seeklander, Rob Pincus is a good friend of mine. He actually has written the curriculum for the USCCA. So pretty much the guy who wrote the whole curriculum that everyone in the USCCA teaches, like I know him and I went through some of his advanced classes. It's hardcore. I've been tore down and built back up and tore down again just to be a better instructor. I've made the investment to be the best instructor I could possibly be. So you can use this tool to the best of your ability to defend yourself or your loved one.
And where did you have to go to get your trainings or your certifications?
So like I did 3 major ones in Michigan, but like I had to travel to the east side of the state for some of those. And I did a big one in Reno. So I was scheduled to go to a big thing in Missouri in May, but some things came up, so I had to reschedule that. So, I'm going to that next year, but I'm constantly working and growing. My thing is, if I'm not teaching a class, I'm trying to be in somebody else's class. I went to Pennsylvania for a survival expedition. I did some medical training stuff. So like it was a really a lot of eye-opening stuff. So
And how much does it cost to get certified to be an instructor to teach firearm safety?
if you do both of them, I think you're looking about 2,000 maybe, and then you got to get your insurance. So then that could be another 1,000, and then you got to pass the class.
Do you have to get recertified like every year?
It is a continual education thing, but then also it's about getting evaluated on the students that you've taught.
Okay, so you talked about the certification fees, but then you also talked about insurance.
Yeah.
What are the other startup costs for running this type of business?
If you don't have a facility, you have to rent a facility, you have to rent a range. I've been in a couple situations where I was going to purchase some land and then things just wasn't matching up. It just didn't make sense for me. I don't want an indoor range. Off top, you're looking at $1 million. It's not practical training.
$1 million.
Just to build an indoor range.
Oh.
You probably got $500,000 in ballistic walls and floors and all that other stuff in the bullet trap. Then you got another $500,000 in the HVAC system that sucks up all the exhaust and gas and everything else like that. That's just the build out for the range.
It's cheaper to buy land.
It's cheaper to buy land, but then you got to build out the land and move berms and bring in dirt. It's not $1 million, but then the problem that I've been having is that I want something that's close, but there's nothing close that will allow me to have an outdoor range in Grand Rapids. So you got to travel out.
So I looked at your website before conducting this interview, as I always do, and I see that you do have a physical location. Are you renting this space? It's a location in Byron Center.
Yeah, the location of Byron Center is my classroom, and that's where I do all the virtual training and stuff like that. And then from there, after we do all of the classroom stuff, we transition to a live fire range. So, and most of the time, that's an outdoor range.
So I am just curious about the process for partnering with another business to do this, because when I interviewed Daryl, he said that, sometimes these business owners are reluctant to let you into the conversation, use their space, et cetera, et cetera.
Definitely.
Did you experience that?
Well, the space that I'm renting is just basically like a big complex. So they have different types of businesses in there, and I have a classroom in there. So it's nothing really firearm related in there. But as far as like other ranges are concerned, there have been some resistance. There's been some pushback. Full transparency, like I said, I'm a black man in West Michigan teaching people about guns. A lot of people ain't comfortable with that. Not everybody, but it is a lot of people who's like, there's a lot of stereotypes. There's a lot of things that got to be broken down. People like me, people like Daryl's, a couple other folks in the town, we're doing the work to really change that. So it's a process, but one step at a time. So I'm really trying to make some strides to really give people a full experience with like learning how to do this, and do it properly and really be able to take care of yourself.
Thank you to you and Daryl and everybody else having these conversations to change the narrative, to break down barriers, to create these spaces where our people can feel safe, to learn, to train, to grow, to protect themselves and their families. Like, I think that's very important. First and foremost. But then I want to ask you about what other skills you need to do this type of work.
I think you need to know how to communicate. You got to be able to communicate and connect with people in different ways. And I think that me being a DJ and knowing how to do that with music makes it easier for me to say, hey, I'm in a classroom talking to a bunch of people I don't really know. And I'm using examples, and the state mandate is at least 8 hours. That's a long day with a lot of information, but I try to put it in a way where like you can easily digest the information, where you're learning this stuff and it's sticking, but you're also having a good time where it's like, all right, it sticks with me.
So if you're familiar with the Currency Club, if you watch any other episodes, one of my favorite games to play is called I'm a Hustler.
Let's go.
What is the craziest thing you've ever done for money?
I did do a party for Betsy DeVos.
How did this even come about? The DeVosses have a really bad rep with some people in Grand Rapids, right? But you were at their house. How did this even come about? Can we have a quick story time?
A homeboy of mine threw me alley-oop and I did it, but I did not enjoy it.
Y'all got to go back and watch part 1 of the interview, because this is probably what DJ Comp was hitting around to, where he said, I had some gigs, they paid well, but I didn't enjoy them. That might be what he was talking about.
That was probably one of them. It was just weird. I was recently asked to DJ a GOP convention. It's a Republican Party convention. In full transparency, I don't align with Republicans or Democrats. I view myself as a libertarian. Left wing, right wing, same bird that's going to try to shit on all of us. So that's how I feel about that.
No, I'm happy you said that, because let me pause and do a shameless plug into another episode, which I am infamous for.
Let's do it.
AJ was just a guest on the Currency Club. And in part two of AJ's interview, he essentially said, we like to be, pick a side here. We like to say we're either Democratic or Republican. But at the end of the day, none of these people really have your best interest at heart. So you have to
Nope.
figure out how to get what you need from both of them to be successful.
Absolutely.
So
I feel like the Democratic Party has pimped black folks for 65 years. When they lose the vote, they blame black folks. When they win the vote, they forget black folks. And every 4 years, they come and do the Cupid shuffle, kiss a black baby, and eat some chitlins.
not chitlins.
Yeah, you got to do something for it. If you're not willing to come to the table and do something, then you're useless to me. Even when we talking about this firearms thing, the origin of gun control is racism. It's built off of racism, and it still affects today. The areas with the highest level of gun control are Democratic controlled cities. That's a fact. These cities, we're talking about Chicago, we're talking about New York, we're talking about California, Oregon, New Jersey, parts of Massachusetts, Democratic control. And these are the people that wants to take care of us, but then you leave us defenseless. Criminals don't follow laws at all. We've seen this all over. Most of these mass shootings occur in gun-free zones. They're not doing us any favors. Our communities are already over-policed.
Underfunded.
They talking about red flag laws and having this kind of a fee and paying for this. And now you make the price of entry even higher, where people who are already at poverty or living below poverty can't afford to get into this club now. In all actuality, the reality is they probably need it more than anybody because they're in an area where it's so many other people who have nothing anyway. And when you have nothing, you're willing to do anything. Because people talk about, oh, we need gun control, we need this, and we already have background checks. You can't go legally purchase a firearm without doing a background check. There is no such thing as a gun show loophole. You have to do a background check. I have a real problem listening to politicians that we pay tell us we can't have firearms when they have armed guards with firearms that we pay for as well to protect them 24/7, and they live in a gated community. We don't live in the same reality at all. Average response time with the police, 10 minutes. You know how much stuff can happen in 10 minutes? You can bleed out and die in under 3 minutes. Average response time, 10 minutes. We've seen several cases. Police are not legally obligated to do anything for you. You have to be your own first responder. Every instance of gun control has been rooted in racism and tried to prevent us from using our Second Amendment rights. Great book that I've read. I always tell everybody, Negros with Guns, Robert F. Williams, okay? He was the president of the NAACP. He empowered his community to take up arms because the Klan kept messing with them. After them rallies and meetings, they'd go through the community, rape one of the black women, beat up one of the black kids, shoot up the neighborhood. They begged and plead City Hall to say, listen, we have to stop them from doing this. It's a free country. There's nothing we can do, blah, blah, blah. So then when the Klan rolled through the next time and they had their firearms, when you let it off, now one coming back. They hurried up and got the hell up out of there. Most of those kind of cowards, they only want to enact a level of violence if they know that it's not coming back. That's why you see all of these mass shooters and school shooters and church shooters. They're going to these places because they know the probability of something coming back at them is going to be really low. And it's on us to be proactive and say, nah, you're going to have to earn this one.
Okay, so at the policy level, what do you think needs to happen to prevent school shootings, to prevent all these senseless acts of violence?
We protect our politicians with firearms. We protect our celebrities with firearms. We protect our banks with firearms. The cannabis industry that's emerging is protected with people with firearms. Why is it that we protect all of these people and institutions with firearms except for our children? Like, why? That doesn't make any sense. The situation down in Texas, the police department was 6 minutes away from the school. They waited an hour before off-duty cops went in there and handled the business.
With that situation, I literally just saw an article that said there were police officers in the building standing in the hallways.
They did nothing. They did nothing.
And then I also read that some of the police officers who were there went to their kids' classrooms and evacuated their kids before they worried about disarming the shooter.
The two people who went and put him down ultimately, one had his wife and kid in there, and then the other one was both of them were off-duty border patrol. One guy whose wife and kid was in the school, who got the text message, was at the barbershop, went and got his barber's shotgun. The other border patrol guy had his kid in the car. They rolled up, went in, got all of the kids out, handled business. That was it. While everybody else was tasering, pepper spraying, arresting parents, and not doing nothing.
Right. So many things were handled wrong with that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean?
Such a tragedy.
No matter what, you cannot prevent evil. Taking away firearms or making it harder to get only makes it harder to get for the people who want to follow the rules. We already have so many barriers to the entry. Most of these politicians who talking about the firearms have no idea how they operate. They'll literally get on TV and lie about numbers when they be like, oh, we had 40,000 deaths from a firearm last year. The thing that they don't tell you is half of it was suicides. You want to manipulate the numbers to tell a story that isn't true. If this was all true, you wouldn't have to skew it. And we're the only country in the world who has in their constitution that we're allowed to have our arms. That's why our country will never be invaded by another foreign country. Because you have to deal with the military, but then you have to deal with the people here. You have all these politicians. This is what's crazy, right? All of these politicians talking about gun control here, right? You know what they did for Ukraine? The politicians that are for gun control here in America that support Ukraine sent them guns. Civilians had guns to fight Russia. $50 billion. We could have used that money to secure our schools.
Or a million other things.
Or a million other things. Even with the stimulus bailout packages, how much money went to other countries? It's a lot of stuff, man. And it's like, listen, criminals don't follow laws. I mean, and if we're really about protecting the best interests of people and making them safe and blah, 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 more people die in a car accident. More people die from diabetes. We got all these other things that more people die from, but we're not doing anything about that. We talk about the scary guns. Oh, the big scary AR-15. More people use a pistol than they do a AR-15 statistically, but it's an entry point. If we take this, then we say, oh, but this doesn't work. We're going to take that, you know? And I'm not a fan of that. And honestly, in my opinion, no black person should be for gun control at all. I think that it's important that you get educated and get empowered and like find somebody that you can ask those questions. It's a lot of sources locally. It's a lot of sources online. Go get educated. And see, here's the thing that what a lot of people don't seem to understand. In the South, firearms is second nature. Like it's part of the culture. It's not a big deal to see somebody with a firearm on their hip. It's not a big deal to go shooting. It's part of their culture. But when we start coming up north and we have the inner city and all this other stuff, they don't have the same experience and access to firearms. So now it's a whole totally different scenario.
So I live in Houston now, and 90% of the people I know have firearms with them on them, in their car, or on their person. Like you said, it's second nature here.
And all types of people have it. It's not just, oh, the white people got it. Oh, the thugged out black guy got it. Like, no, everybody have it.
Because the people I'm talking about are professionals. They work corporate jobs, 9 to 5. Yeah. So I'm agreeing with you.
It's normalized. But the more normalized we make it, the more educated we have the people be, the less these things are going to happen. It's simple as that. But go get the medical training. Go have a plan. I run fire drills with my kids at home. We do it at school. We do it at our jobs. I mean, fires happen at homes too, right? Mm-hmm. We got to have that plan. It's very important. We have too much faith in the government to take care of us when time and time again, they've shown us that they don't give a damn about the people.
Okay, so what you just said reminds me of what you said in this interview. Number one, we cannot stop evil. But number two, when I interviewed Daryl, he said, one of my favorite quotes came from my boy DJ Composition. Nobody is coming to save you.
Nobody's coming to save you. I've been saying that for years. I've bounced back and forth between Grand Rapids and Detroit. Went to school here, went to school there, spent some time as an adult over there. August, I want to say 2003. There was a massive blackout that affected the East Coast parts of Canada all the way to Detroit. Happened right shortly after 9/11. Living in Detroit, Dearborn is the largest Arabic community in the country. So people started losing it, thinking it was a terrorist attack. I lived really close to downtown, so I could see the skyline and all this other stuff, all the lights and right by the freeway. There's never been a time in my life that it was that pitch black in a city. And it was like that for 3 days. I remember walking to the grocery store because it was a Thursday afternoon. You know, people get paid on Friday. What they do, they make plans to go grocery shop on the weekend, or the tank ain't full, or, you know, we barely making it at that point, right? They were price gouging so bad. We're talking about $30 for a bag of ice. This is in the middle of the summer. We're talking about $25 a gallon of gas. And you had to pay cash because no power. So the debit cards don't mean shit. Your credit cards don't mean nothing. The stores were armed with their people had guns, like, and they was only letting 2 people in at a time. Like, I literally remember telling my little brother at the time, because I was like 20 or something. He was like 9 or 10. I said, yo, if anything happened, don't worry about me. Run straight home. Like, I lived that. People started going crazy and they were stuck with decisions. Do I let my food go bad because it's hot and my freezer ain't working, my refrigerator ain't working? Or do I cook everything up? Because there is no information, there is no timetable on when this is going to happen. We don't live in a society of rainbows and lollipops and all good things. The balance to that is there's a lot of ugliness in the world, right? So whatever you have in your society, when it collapses or when something like this happens, only multiplies because people will feel more secure in the fact that they won't be held to any consequences. The robbery is going up. The raping is going up. All that stuff is going up. When we watch stuff like The Purge and everything, like that stuff happens. Because unfortunately, we have people who are just garbage. But what are we going to do about it? We have to be proactive. We have to protect ourselves. I remember like in that night thinking like somebody come in and do whatever they want to my mama, my sister, all this other stuff and kill me. And there's nothing I can do about it. From that moment forth, I changed my whole perspective. And that's why I tell everybody, nobody's coming to save you. I've been saying it since then. Like it clicked in my head. Nobody's coming. Look at all the people that happened when Hurricane Katrina came. FEMA didn't do a great job. Anytime we have a natural disaster and all this other stuff and we're waiting on somebody to come, it always ends up bad. Houston has real bad floods. Mm-hmm. People still, even after all this time, don't put contingency plans in place. Like bad stuff happens whether we want it to or not. Like nature is a real thing. And then sometimes people take advantage of that. We have to be proactive as a community, you know, even as a human race. Like we have to be ready for that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Nike is just do it. I'm saying nobody's coming to save you. That's how much I say it.
So let's talk about tips for people to prepare, people to protect themselves. Like what do you want the viewers to know to be prepared? Whether it's for these natural disasters or the evil in the world, the next blackout, just whatever the situation is. Do you have some things top of mind that you can share?
Well, first and foremost, go get in some type of shape. Go get your cardio up. Go lift some weights. Go do some stuff. Go learn how to fight. If you don't have a controlled level of violence in your life, when you get punched in the face, you will not know how to respond. Growing up, we saw kids who had a bunch of brothers and sisters and cousins, and all they did was fight. So when they got in a fight with somebody else, they was like Bruce Leroy, and they had to glow, and they was just ducking and dodging, and they handled themselves very well. And on the other end of the spectrum, we seen people who had never had any violent confrontation in their life get punched in the face lightly, and their whole body shut down. If you don't have a practice level of controlled violence in your life, you're not going to know how to respond when it does happen. Go get in shape. Go get a level of controlled violence. I don't care if it's a boxing class, if it's a grappling class, Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, judo. Go do all that stuff. Go train with some firearms. Do the basic pistol class. Do the CPL class, and then go from the advanced training from there, and then practice. It's a whole lifestyle switch. Have you at least 2 weeks of food in your house? Amazon is your friend. You know, even if you get bundles of ramen noodles, not the healthiest choice, but hey, oatmeal beats no meal, right? Have some water if you don't have access to water. Have lithium batteries available for like your cell phones. Have a plan in place where if power goes out or communications go down and you have loved ones across the city, y'all have a way to communicate or to meet somewhere. Even in our cars, have an emergency roadside kit. Make sure your spare tire is there. Make sure you got flares. Have a flashlight in your car. Have a flashlight in the house. You can go on Amazon and buy tea candles, like 300 tea candles that last like 12 hours each for like $20. Granola bars, emergency blankets, roadside flares, like all those different raincoats, like all that stuff is little stuff that you can put up and have. I'm in the process of building out a greenhouse to grow my own food. That's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but you know, I didn't really have the time to put in the time, so to speak. So that's one of the next projects that I'm working on now. But those things, if you cover those things, you're off to a good start. And then you can start building your network with like-minded individuals, at least the people that you love and trust. Say you have a set of goods and they have a set of goods. Now you can kind of divide and conquer on like a list.
Those are very practical tips. Don't be sorry. This is good. I'm just soaking it all in. Like it's a few things I need to do to prepare for this next natural disaster or just emergency, especially because I live alone. You should have a bug out bag, like straight up. You should have a bug out bag and a plan, multiple exit routes on how to get the hell out of Dodge if you have to evacuate. You said you do fire drills with your kids. Like we do them at school. Why not do them in the home?
Yep.
Do you have any recommendations for how parents can protect their kids if, you know, an unfortunate situation occurred in the home?
And when it comes to like a fire or something? Okay, so what I do is this. You know the sports air horns?
Yes.
What I do is this with my kids. If I hit it once, they got to get out of the house and go to our designated safe space, but they can go out the front door. If I hit it twice, they have to find an alternate route besides the front door because you may not have the luxury of going out the front door. And I just do it random days and times throughout the course of the year. It could be 8 in the morning. It could be 4 in the afternoon. It could be 12:30 at night. Like I'm gonna hit it randomly, and I'm timing you because most homes built after 92 are built with materials that can completely burn down in under 3 minutes. That's not a long time. Too many incidents have happened where kids have died because they was waiting on somebody to come save them. We have to empower ourselves. We have to empower our children. You got to know how to move. You have to get on. You know, the running joke in my house, we ain't got room for weak links. You got to come on. Let's get to getting, you know. So that's that can is like $6, and you can practice that, and you can talk it out with your kids. Where would you go? What would you do?
That is so important, especially with this generation of children who they can operate a smartphone, they can do a Zoom call, they can do so many things. But when an emergency comes, they're
Most people
froze.
panic.
They don't know what to do.
Adults
Most people
panic.
panic. But then I also always think about how so many kids are left home alone. Not intentionally. Every family structure is set up different. Maybe mom's just running to grab groceries, but maybe it's a single parent household and a person literally has to leave to go to work for, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. And the kid is supervising themselves. They might even
Right.
be like looking after a toddler or an infant. Like
Definitely.
homes are so different. Family structures are so different. So I think it's just
And,
very important to have these conversations with kids.
and because of social media, we have predators who have even more access to our kids through
Mhm.
games and YouTube and all that other stuff. Think about this. Growing up, we had a mentality of don't talk to strangers online or whatever, and don't get in the car you don't know, right?
Yep.
Now we talk to strangers online and get in cars we don't know, and we call it Uber and Lyft.
How things
That's
have
what we do now.
changed.
In one of my training courses, my lead instructor, he's been an instructor for like a long time. He's high level, right? He's breaking some stuff down to us. One of the top selling items, and I tell people this in my class, one of the top selling items on eBay is used UPS uniforms. Used UPS uniforms. We get so excited when we get a package from Amazon that we can't wait to open the door up to anybody who's coming up. Most of these people are not who they say they are. You got your 86-inch 4088p TV hanging up on the wall. You can damn near touch Tony Stark. They casing it. It happens. It happens all the time. But that's because we're not trained to have that mentality like, oh, wait a minute. There was a woman some time ago who had a flower delivery in Atlanta. The guy was like, oh, it's too big. I can bring it in the house. She said, sure. It was a dude who she rejected. And when he put the flowers on, he assaulted her in her home and then left. Like, we have to be proactive with these things.
Yes,
we have
aware, assertive. We have to
situation
question
awareness.
everything. You can leave
can
it on the
leave
porch.
it on the porch and wait for them to drive away. It's not that important. You're not going to die if you don't open the door right this second. Just leave it.
So this conversation is very important. Is there anything else you want to say related to this personal safety or family safety before we transition?
Just have a plan and talk things out. Like, it's okay to not know anything. But if you don't talk about it, when something happens, no one knows what to do. But at least start practicing a plan, or at least talking about it like, hey, maybe we should do this. You know what I'm saying?
Proper planning prevents poor performance. Okay, so now I want to lighten the mood and continue this I'm a hustler game. If you had to come up with $10,000 in 2 days, 48 hours, what would you do to get that money?
I would probably have some type of blowout weekend. Like some type of entertainment event, and maybe something educational on the flip side too.
That question is normally hard for people to answer. And it normally is a perfect segue into my next segment where we talk about challenges. So you already covered a lot, but what are some of the challenges of running a firearms training business in West Michigan or just in general?
Dealing with folks who are on the fence. You know, they're not sure that it is for them. And I'm like, I'm totally okay if you feel like this isn't for you. At least come to the class and get the information and then make a decision. I don't want you to make a decision without having all the information. There's still some barriers to be broken down. I've been aggressively working on that, changing that narrative. I've had a couple of news segments, and, I've had an opportunity to enlighten some folks and change some thinking, but it's still an uphill battle. Anything firearm related is looked at negative. There's a book called When Violence is the Answer. And they basically break it down like, okay, if a man breaks into my house and I'm in the kitchen cooking and he grabs the knife and stabs me to death, that's a bad thing. But say the same person comes in, tries to attack me, but I grab the knife and defend my life and save my life. I used the same tool, had the same action, but it was for good. And most people can't wrap their mind around the fact that you may have to be violent to save yourself, to save a loved one. It's close to anywhere between 50,000 and 500,000 defensive gun uses per year. The definition of defensive gun use is maybe I just produce my firearm and say, stop, don't move. and then the person who wants to do me harm runs away. Those conversations aren't happening enough where the narrative is shifting. Because right now, all we see in the news and the media is it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. When it's like, no, it could be used for good because once again, criminals don't follow laws at all. And the other challenge, I guess I would say, is people who have overestimated their abilities and they haven't put in the work. There's so much work I have to do. Okay, it takes 10,000 hours to be a master at anything. And if we want to master being proficient in saving our life or saving a loved one, we got to put that work in. And I just tell people in the classes, this is the tip of the iceberg. This is the first step of the journey. You got to keep working. You got to keep practicing. So really drilling that into people's head has been a challenge too, because, you know, I'm not a rubber stamp dude. I'm not going to just rubber stamp because you sat in a seat. No, like I'm going to make you apply what you learned. And if you don't, you're not passing. Those have been some of my challenges. And working with the city and trying to find a facility where I can do those things and expand it, have the access for people inside the city. That's been my biggest thing, but I'm working on it. I always find a way.
Do you have any other book recommendations or maybe favorite podcasts so that people can learn more?
Coleon Nior, he has a good YouTube channel. Maj Toure, Solutionary Lifestyle. He has another good thing. And Rob Pincus does a lot of stuff. He actually attacks the mental health side of like responsible firearm owners too, because a lot of the suicides from men are done with a firearm. And coming out of COVID, like so many people like been in this depressed state that they've seen things. I mean, people have never in their entire life seen empty grocery shelves until this period. I'm sad to tell folks that it's coming back. People couldn't wrap their head around it. Who else?
Is that a reminder for us to go buy toilet paper?
Please, more than toilet paper. Please. But people did go crazy on the tissue.
All right. So I know you have this entertainment background. You have all these other podcasts and creative ventures. Do you have a podcast to talk specifically about firearms and safety?
So I, like I said earlier, I am working on a podcast called Drive, Shoot, Spin. And that basically covers everything automotive, everything artist related, and then everything firearms. So with that, my goal is to interview different individuals in those respective lanes and let them give their story, their perspective. So then we can start seeing those bridges because, you know, a lot of them are connected. So I want to be able to just show and highlight that there's so many different people from so many different walks of life doing all of these cool things. The firearm element is a area of mine that I really want to highlight. Different instructors, influencers, all types of backgrounds, you know. In the last 3 years, all of the new owners been women and Black and brown people, like big time. There's a big influx of that. I want to be able to talk to those people. I want to be able to talk to the folks who are help guiding this new generation of firearm owners, you know, and doing cool stuff. So I want to be able to introduce them to the world through all of those different things. You might be there for the cars, but then you end up learning something about the DJ and stuff. You might be there for the DJ stuff and then learn something about firearms. So I want to connect all of those worlds together because those are the things that I'm passionate about.
Yeah, you're a big connector. You are big on collaboration, but then you are also big on amplifying the voices and experiences of others. So what is your favorite Black-owned business?
I try to be very intentional with how I spend my money and who I support. While I'm not a fan of the movies and the television shows per se, I am inspired by what somebody like Tyler Perry has been able to create. Like, I think that's so dope. Reviews and critics, they never give him a chance. But what he's been able to accomplish, like, I really want to go down and see the facility for myself. But even just seeing it from that perspective is like, whoa, like, that's high level stuff. Even when we were talking about, like, getting my van wrapped and stuff, little kids who look like me can see me riding down the street and be inspired by that. Like, oh, whoa, I didn't know I could do that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it's about that exposure. And every time that a Black business pop up or whatever, I try to go support them. I try to go highlight them. And I mean, and it's nothing. Like, if I go there and spend some money on a meal or an item, I tag the place and say, hey, I had a good sandwich or whatever. That's me supporting the business. It matters. And we can do that, you know? And then even on the flip, I will say this. Say you didn't have the best service. Say it wasn't the best food or whatever. We can't just be running online to bash it. Like, if you had an issue, bring it up with the owners, bring it up with the manager, like, do it on a personal level. How many times have Amazon messed our order up? How many times have we went to a fast food place and they messed our order up? We don't ever go online and bash them and do all that.
I do. But I'm going to give them a chance to correct the situation first. I'm giving everybody a chance to correct the situation.
Give them a chance for sure. But I feel like some of us, we're so attracted and inclined to the negative so fast that we never give people who starting out a fighting chance. You know what I mean? It's not like a lot of us grew up with a big ass business background either. You know what I mean? or being able to have those experiences or influences from somebody who's been successful. That's the one thing I can say that I enjoyed about living in Detroit, is that I seen so many successful Black people. And you just didn't see a bunch of that in Grand Rapids. It's been shifting, and I love seeing the growth, but we need more. And we need more in different lanes too.
And I agree with you. We got to give our Black and brown businesses, our new businesses, these startups, we got to give them grace. We got to give them a chance to get better. We got to give them a chance to correct the situation before we bash them. Okay, so what is your greatest accomplishment, both with your DJ career and then also your firearms business?
I guess my greatest accomplishment with my DJing career is that I've built up a strong enough brand and a solid following that people trust me enough that I can do it full time and take care of my family. And I've met a bunch of DJs. Like I met Grandmaster Flash. I did an event with DJ Envy. I met my favorite DJ of all time, DJ Jazzy Jeff, and I actually had a chance to kick it with him. So like all of those are like great like milestones. But like the fact that I can take care of my family in this climate, that's a blessing, and that's a major accomplishment. And then with the firearms thing, I went through the process, and I'm a Spring GR alum. I won that, and then I won the Start Garden thing. So like Black guy, West Michigan, talking about firearms, I broke it down in such a way, and like I made a case for it that people like understood it, they got it, and they respected it. And I was able to like walk away with some nice investments to help propel my business and make it better for other folks, and really just empower people. Because I've had people from all walks of life. I've had people who have been victims of domestic violence come in and say, hey, I need to make a change. And I've helped them do that. So that's super rewarding for me. I've had guys who are my age, been carrying illegally for 20 years. They come sit in my classroom and they get certified, and now they legit. So now they don't ever have to worry about getting caught illegally, and they not taken away from their families. So like that perspective is like what I'm proud of, because I never jumped into the lane to become like Jeff Bezos. I would love to make a living off of it, but if I can save some lives, if I can empower my community, then like that's worth it for me. As long as it's paying for itself and putting some money in my pocket, and I keep growing and expanding, because I got some big goals in front of me for what I want to do with it. Because it's not just firearms that I want to keep pushing the agenda on. I want like a full facility where I can give you everything.
Well, kudos to you for winning in life, winning those awards, winning those, just everything. You are inspiring. Your passion is clearly there. I can't wait to see what's next for you. I'm definitely going to invite you back to the Currency Club as often as you want to continue to talk about the great work that you are doing.
I can't wait. So, thank you for having me.
Yeah. And I definitely want to thank you for your time, your energy, the knowledge you dropped, right? I learned so much watching this. I have some action items, some things I need to take away to prepare myself for life. But before we go, I need you to leave the viewers with an inspirational message.
Nobody's coming to save you. You got to get after it. We talked about like how much I've invested with DJ equipment and all this other stuff. And the thing that I say to myself is I'm too close to quit, and I'm too far to go back and start over. You got to push through. The hurt is going to be there. Are you going to hurt and fail, or are you going to hurt and win? And I like winning.
So with that being said, I want to encourage all of our viewers to check out all of DJ Composition's businesses. We will link all of that in the description box below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join the club.